Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just really like to remind Chair. Beg your pardon. I'd just like to remind Councillor Green, actually, that proper governance is not childish, and proper democracy is not childish either. It's quite clear from the national press and from the petitions that we've heard in other councils, and also from the by-elections. Let's not forget that the heavily conservative area of Highcliffe just voted 12.5% Conservative in the last by-election. That trust has been lost, and it needs to be restored. It desperately needs to be restored. And if the Conservatives don't think that, then they're in for a bit of a shock when it comes to next May. I would just like to remind Council that actually the proposal is not to remove the right of members to be directors. It is removing cabinet members, and that's a fairly small pool of which we are all members. And I'd just like also to remind the leader, when he says that things have changed, seems to say that things have changed for the better. I really don't think that the finances that are frozen, all but statutory expenditure, is a good improvement. The only reason that we're in the financial, that things have improved, is because spending has stopped. Spending has stopped. We've already heard from Councillor Brown that statutory, anything but statutory expenditure has stopped on climate change, and that's the reason, because somebody has had to stop you spending money, and that's why it's got a bit better. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. Councillor Brown, please.
Thank you, Chair. It's interesting listening to the comments and the quotes that we've had so far this evening from various parts of the chamber. I was a little disappointed with comments to start with, which described this motion as superficial and not a minute's thought being put into it, which is completely the opposite, and I think it's quite disrespectful of those people that have spent time putting this together. We've also heard comments that it's not common sense to avoid company directorships. Well, tell that to the many local authorities in this country that do that, and that find it quite an anathema that actually cabinet members are also company directors. Many local authorities in this country look at BCP and think that that's odd, an odd way of operating. Just because you've been used to doing it in the past, it's not the norm. I had comments about the members this side opposing for the sake of opposition. Well, I seem to remember that being the case in 2019 and 2020, looking at the members opposite, actually, who are often opposing just for the sake of opposition. And it was mentioned that, there aren't any other sort of upper-tier authorities in the financial position that we're in at the moment. I'd quite agree. I don't know many upper-tier authorities that are having to seek a government capitalisation direction to bail them out and having to consider a fire sale of commercial investment assets to bail out the financial situation they've got their councils into. So, yeah, you're right. There aren't many upper-tier authorities in the financial situation that we're in. And just to clarify, there's quite a few sort of quotes and talk about LGA reviews. Just to remind you that just before this motion was put in, these are the words of the LGA, what was it called? The LGA Corporate Peer Challenge Review. Based upon the documents we've reviewed, in the view of the LGA team, BCP Council has moved towards a very precarious financial position over a short period of time since the peer challenge in the autumn of 2021. Only the statutory override, which suspends the need to offset DSG deficits against general fund reserves and was only ever a short-term measure introduced by government, is keeping BCP Council from a position of non-viability, and therefore the need for the Section 151 officer to consider a Section 114 notice. That's the position that we were told in September. That's the quote from the LGA review. You keep denying that this council is in financial difficulties. Well, that's the external view.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Was that an indication, Councillor Howell?
Normally me.
Yeah,
I just like to make comments. Councillor Mr. Green talked about, people should behave as adults, and perhaps he might have a word with his wife when he gets home, Councillor Mrs. Green, because I just think it's completely unacceptable for her to have
Councillor Howell.
No,
I'm not quite sure. Is this
let me
just a purely personal attack, Councillor Howell?
It's not a personal attack. It is a statement that Councillor Green, in her statement, had a go at the Mayor of Poole. That's completely out of order. You know, we are a political body here. The Mayorship, the Charter Trustees, is a separate body. It's not political. The Mayor is not in the position to respond to that statement. Members of this council should not criticise people and bring in, you know, the Mayorship into this debate. It is just not an adult or responsible thing to do. Thank you.
Chairman, may I seek clarity
Yes.
from the Chief Executive about where my redress is for the comments that Councillor Howell just addressed to me and to my husband, a fellow councillor, and what the expectation is of members' conduct towards one another.
I think formal redress, the only mechanism we have within the Council is the Standards Committee. If Councillor Green were to accept an apology if there were any personal statements made, that might be another approach to it in terms of interpretation of what was said. I don't know if Councillor Howell wants to reflect on the words he used and would just wish to apologise for that personal remark now, and that might be appropriate. If not, the formal mechanism is via the Standards Committee.
Councillor Howell, you have an invitation from the Chief Executive.
Yes, I mean, my point was simply to make the point about the Mayorship. So if any offence was caused, I'd quite happily withdraw that. I was just really making a statement of fact, really. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Howell. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. That is clearly not an apology.
The Chief Executive will talk to you outside, Councillor Green.
Thank you, Chairman. I look forward to an opportunity to meet with the Chief Executive to explore the discriminatory comments which have been made.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Chairman, sorry. Yeah.
That's you, Councillor Trent.
As this
Not here.
spat was resulting on comments that Councillor Green made about myself, maybe in the spirit of apology, she should apologise for actually dragging that in there. I am speaking as a member of BCP Council and representing a lot of people who are left behind in this town, and to find my role as Mayor of Poole being attacked from someone who doesn't even attend the Charter Trustees, despite their right to, you know, I think I would be entitled to an apology, but I didn't get up to do it, but if we are going to share apologies, I think I should have an apology for that.
Thank you, Councillor Trent. Councillor Green, is there anything you'd like to address to Councillor Trent at this point?
I'd be very happy to have a conversation with Councillor Trent away from this. Thank you, Councillor Rampton, for the expression toxic environment, because that completely sums up the behaviour to which I've been subjected. And I think in terms of making clear-headed decisions, it might be sensible to have that conversation later.
So then, I guess that will need to move back to the recommendation, the substantive item.
Okay. Move back to the recommendation of the substantive item. Councillor Stribley, who have... Councillor Broadhead, yes. 1 second, Councillor Stribley.
Chairman, in virtue of the fact that it's now 10:30, I'd like to move 38.13 that the motion now be put.
that was my intention at this point. We'll move to...
You have to take a vote on whether the motion should now be put.
Okay, can I have a vote, please, that the motion now be put? Agreed, thank you. Yeah.
May I ask that each of the items within the motion is voted on separately, please? Yes.
Thank you.
So the suggestion is that we take
Could we have a recorded vote on that as well, please?
So we're not going...
Sorry, way to get back to A&G outside of this.
Councillor Broadhead.
In order to take the votes individually, do we not require a vote on that? To split the
I
motion.
would assume
It's
so.
It's essentially an amendment of the
Yes,
motion.
please. Yes, I would, yes. It's my decision to take one each time, separate vote for each item.
Yeah, Councillor Stribley has...
Councillor Stribley, you have your hand up.
Thank you, Chairman. The heating went off in this chamber several hours ago. I have resorted to putting my coat on, but I am getting really uncomfortably cold, and I'm sure I'm not the only one here. Please, can we expedite matters?
So, okay, we'll move to the vote for individual items, please. 1A. Oh, please. I'm so sorry. There was so much excitement. Councillor Earl, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. I won't take long. I think when I wrote this motion, I actually did a huge amount of research into looking at other councils' constitutions, into finding out from colleagues how they do it on their council, and for it to be sort of brushed aside as like, oh, well, you haven't thought about it much, is really quite, personally insulting. But maybe I should have thought about that before I came here. Maybe I should have put a bit more effort into explaining the legalities around why the wording was in this way, and so on. But things like company directorships, we're not talking about charities, we're not talking about external companies, we're talking about the companies that exist within the council that are financed by the council. So many other councils do not have company directorships. It's just not part of how they do things, because it does actually just look bad. And there's no real reason for having those anyway within our council. And I think also, just to talk about governance review, Councillor Slade, when she was leader of the council, she had committed to a governance review. We were, as soon as the leader took over, talked about doing a governance review, and now the only reason we're having one is because we may have to or may not have to take a capitalisation grant from the loan from the government. So I don't mind. I mean, if we want to split these up and vote on them separately, that's fine with me. But I think what's important is really to try and support where you can, because I think that we need to do something. Like Councillor Green said, it's a toxic environment. And I think that if we could at least look at some of these areas and go about making these changes, then we can win back a bit more confidence in residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Earl. Right, okay, straight to the vote, no more debate. So 1A, those in favour? As amended, indeed.
That looks pretty... Well, it's clearly a majority.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. 1B, please. Those in favour? Thank you. And then those against? Any abstentions, please? Two. So that was lost. 1C, those in favour? Those against? And any abstentions? 4, 5, 6, 7 abstentions. It's lost 23 to 31. 1D. Those in favour? Thank you. Those against? And abstentions, please. 2, 3. That was lost 24 to 33. And 2A. Those in favour? Yeah. Those against, please.
Sorry, could you just ask for the hands to be very high on this one so we can see everybody? There's a couple of us. 4, 6, 8, 10, 14, 16, 17, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13, 30. And that's lost 28 to 30. Abstentions, please, sorry. Abstentions. 3 abstentions. So that's lost 28 to 30. Thank you, members. Councillor Pedowin.
Thank you, Chair. You mumbled the figures, but I'm afraid I certainly wasn't able to hear them all, so could we have them read out?
Yes, of course.
For all the votes.
1A was carried, 1B was 23 for, 31 against, 2 abstentions. 1C was 23 for, 31 against, 7 abstentions. D, 24 for, 33 against, 3 abstentions. And 2A, 28 for, 30 against, 3 abstentions. Thank you. Takes us to... There's one item, we're slightly overdue for a break. Would anybody feel... Two items. Sorry, I was misguided. Your fault. And your emergency, yeah. So I would suggest a break. If you could be back in 14 minutes, please. No.
Just make it 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you. We start the live stream. Ms Jones, thank you. Thank you, members, for resuming your seats once again. We're now on to item C, White Ribbon Accreditation. BCP Council explores options to become a White Ribbon accredited organisation by forming a working group, completing the necessary training, developing an action plan and paying the appropriate accreditation fee for White Ribbon UK. Councillor Evans, I call upon you to move your motion.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me okay? Chair, Council. From a young age, those who identify as female are told they should follow the rules. They should avoid walking alone in dark areas, they should dress conservatively, and they should only drink in moderation. If they don't follow the rules, not only could they be attacked, raped, or murdered, but it will be seen as their own fault. Research shows that the overwhelming majority of women have been subjected to some form of harassment or sexual violence. It is time to stop making the victims responsible for their safety and address the causes. In July 2021, the government launched its strategy for tackling violence against women and girls, stating that it is an unacceptable, preventable issue which blights the lives of millions. Crimes of violence against women and girls are many and varied. They include rape and other sexual offences, stalking, domestic abuse, honour-based abuse, revenge porn and upskirting, as well as many others. These crimes are deeply harmful, not only because of the profound effect they can have on victims, survivors and their loved ones, but also because of the impact they can have on wider society, impacting on the freedom and equality we should all value and enjoy. 99% of rapes, 95% of serious domestic violence cases, and 93% of all murders are carried out by men. Not all men are violent, but almost all violent people are men. So, if they are the problem, let's help men become the solution. White Ribbon is the UK's leading charity engaging men and boys to end violence against women and girls. Its aim is to change long-established and harmful attitudes, systems and behaviours around masculinity that perpetuate gender inequality and men's violence against women. So why should BCP Council work with them? Well, organisations have an important role to play in shifting the societal attitudes and beliefs that prevent gender equality and create an environment where harassment, abuse and violence is more likely. This ties in very well with our corporate strategy and the Community Safety Partnership that we discussed earlier this evening. Gaining White Ribbon accreditation ensures organisations take a strategic approach to ending male violence against women by engaging with men and boys, changing cultures and raising awareness. Accreditation is gained through 3-year cycles of committing to change, developing an action plan, delivering the action plan, reviewing progress and planning next steps. The charity provides help and support throughout this process. Many other comparable organisations have already gained White Ribbon accreditation. It's time for BCP Council to join them. I look forward to hearing your thoughts on this motion and answering any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Evans. Councillor Slade, I understand you wish to second the motion.
Yes, but I reserve my right to speak later.
Thank you. I could open this up. Councillor Mellor, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you very much to Councillor Evans for bringing a motion. The work of violence against women and girls is complex and takes many forms that we as a council may get involved in. As a council, it is important to remember that we are not only a provider of services, but we're also one of the largest employers on the South Coast. And more importantly, we are all community leaders. Our commitment to the illumination of discrimination, harassment, victimisation is well documented, and as leader of this council, I take that commitment seriously. Therefore, we fully support any initiative that reduces hate crime, and it includes domestic violence and all forms of harassment and violence against women and girls. It is clear that attitudes and behaviours towards women in the home, in the streets and in the workplace have to change. This is important and is reflected in the vital pieces of work which led to the introduction of BCP Council's Women's Staff Network Group, who are by far the largest of our network groups with over 200 members. It was introduced after the horrific murder of Sarah Everard, the Me Too movement and the Reclaim the Streets initiative, and they have been instrumental in leading on work against harassment in the workplace and also with the implementation of our equalities footprint. Just this week, our community safety team met with one of the chairs of the Women's Network. They have a wellbeing subgroup which has been looking at the issues around safety. Representatives of the Women's Staff Network Group also sit on the Equalities Assessment Panel, which ensures that all our equalities assessments are completed to the highest standard and gives meaningful consideration to the impact that our decisions will have on women as well as other aspects of identity. I'm also pleased to report that we have allies at senior management level to support the Women's Staff Network Group, which includes men who work within the organisation. We also have Jess Gibbons, a corporate director, who is our designated champion for women, so their voices can be heard at the top of the organisation and their experiences in the workplace can be understood and their voices heard. But our work cannot and is not limited to just about attitudes within the workplace, and we should be ensuring that we reach all sectors of our communities. And I'm very happy to support and welcome the motion put forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mellor. Councillor Dove, please.
Thank you. As Councillor Mellor stated, our work cannot and is not limited to just about attitudes within the workplace and careless, silly statements. We should be ensuring that we reach all sectors of the communities, both within and outside of this council. That's why we as an administration, as a council and as a community leader support the education of men, especially men of the future who are now our sons as they grow up to be the next generation. The Safer BCP Preventing Domestic Abuse strategy was adopted in 2021, and as you've heard, it's overseen by the Community Safety Partnership, which comprises of many agencies. This multi-agency work collectively and collaboratively aspires to achieve the ambitious aim that no resident living within or visiting BCP should live in fear of harassment, victimisation, or experience domestic abuse. And this applies to all, not exclusively only those within the relationship. It applies to anyone who experiences harm or the effect of domestic abuse, including children where abuse is witnessed. So our work to date has been focused on offering training and awareness programmes to schools so that domestic abuse is recognised from an early age to be the abhorrent and cruel crime that it is. And over the next 2 years, there are key programmes around prevention and engagement. This will promote healthy relationships and behaviours for men and boys via delivery to schools and community groups so that we create long-term change and not just short-term fixes. The strategy isn't just to support victims, it's to work with perpetrators so that the cycle of abuse can be broken, not just in their future relationships, but in the relationships with their children too. And the programme has proved successful in reducing reoffending rates and reducing risk while supporting families. We also run a range of services across the council and partners, ensuring that our multi-agency processes to manage high-risk cases are always effective. More recently, we conducted a needs assessment which will support future commissioning services. But we tend to do more. And within BCP, we will create an environment to make telling easier, make our response balanced and timely, develop specialist knowledge to improve our understanding of violence against women and girls, and how comments and thoughtless statements can be harmful in that work, evaluate the effectiveness of our policies and our procedures, and make telling a positive experience. But with that in mind, particularly making telling easier and make telling a positive experience, the white ribbon motion isn't just here as a signal virtuing tool that members can stand up, wave around, speaking pretty words in order to gain cheap headlines. During this last council meeting and today, there have been emails, tweets and actions when someone has spoken up to represent women and how they may feel within this chamber. I would like to think that actually we will work together and we will be listening to our women, regardless of whether it's politics over people. We'll understand the impact that actions can take and how women can feel. So back to the matter in hand. The White Ribbon Campaign is therefore closely aligned with all the work that we have underway, and I would be very pleased to take this motion back to our Domestic Abuse Strategy Group to encourage them to consider signing up as a partnership. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dove. Councillor Butt-J, please.
Yes, thank you very much. This is obviously a very laudable motion, and obviously there's not one person in the chamber, I'm sure, that would disagree with it. We also have Clare's Law, which of course was about violence of people who are dating people, and due to Claire dying, that was brought in so that people are now checked out if you're dating. You can have a check and you can ask the police to come along and speak to that individual on your behalf, which is an excellent law. I 100% support this, but I really do feel that I don't want us to be in a position where we're feeling that we're victimising other genders and none, because all genders and none are quite capable of perpetrating violence upon all genders and none. So therefore, what I would like to do is obviously to acknowledge Councillor Evans' motion and support that wholeheartedly, but to widen it to add to the motion, so the motion as stands as is, that I'll get my specs on because I've written this down. Widening the scope of BCP's concerns to include violence from all perpetrators on all victims, so that really covers the scope. The white ribbon motion is excellent, but we must also be mindful, and as Councillor Dove also raises, it's about everybody being victimised and about being hurt by others. So it's all genders and none, and how they might perpetrate violence upon all genders and none. I'm trying to choose my words very carefully. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So are you proposing that as an amendment, Councillor Butt?
Yes. In addition to Councillor Evans' motion as she has put, as it stands, to say, sorry, sitting and reading is difficult, but I want to respect the chair, widening the scope of BCP's concern to include violence from all perpetrators on all victims. You can add of all genders and none. I don't know whether you'd want to do that. I just want to be very careful as to my wording. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Evans, could you respond to that, please, with your thoughts?
Yes, I completely agree that all victims do need our concern and our support, but this is a very targeted initiative to specifically address violence against women and girls.
Thank you. Councillor Butt, your wording it's prepared and you're ready to send it out, yes?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yes, of course I will.
Thank you. And we'll seek agreement of council for that amendment. We're just having a discussion, Councillor, but because whilst amendments can often enhance and expand, it's actually the Democratic Services are considering the fact that it's actually moving away from the motion itself. So it may be a question of approaching it with a different motion at a different time. Could you just bear with...
The Chamber doesn't support non-violence, it doesn't support the violence of...
Well, we'll... Councillor Slade.
Might I suggest that the White Ribbon campaign is the White Ribbon campaign. Yeah, exactly, it is yes. A campaign by men, for men, against women. I don't see... I mean, the only way it might work is as a separate... thing that was a completely separate item that this council also notes, but it can't be within that same thing because it would undermine the white ribbon.
Yeah, I mean, I'm inclined to agree with that. So, Councillor Butt, if you would understand the position I'm in here, I think that's absolutely laudable, which I would support, but I think it would need a separate, more thought-out motion rather more than amending something which is specific to the white ribbon accreditation. Would you be happy at this point to withdraw that, but let us all work together on it for a separate individual specified motion?
I'm disappointed that it can't be accepted today, but I will go with the feeling of the Council Chamber. It is important that the white ribbon motion is supported. But
absolutely. Absolutely, yes. I will be full square behind it, and I'm sure that Councillor Dove and others, and certainly those bringing this, would work on a wider basis. And thank you very much for leading that thought, which is really important. But thank you for withdrawing the amendment at this point. Thank you. Any other? Councillor Farr, I think you indicated.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll be brief. Just like to say a few words in support of this motion this evening. Ending male violence against women is an issue close to my heart. I was fortunate to attend a White Ribbon event last year alongside BCP Chairman Nigel Hedges. I met some strong women who are empowering themselves by spreading awareness and supporting each other. It's really encouraging to see. It needs to be said, to end male violence against women, it takes us men to make a difference as allies and pledge to end it. The campaign is particularly significant with what has been happening to females in Iran. It's important we collectively make our voices heard. I'm pleased to support this motion as it will continue the good work already being done in BCP. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Farr. Councillor Butler, I think you indicated next, please.
Yeah, really just a bit of information from Councillor Evans. It talks about the accreditation fee. Do you know how much that is and how long it lasts for? Is it every year or a one-off fee? Thank you.
Councillor Evans, thank you.
Sorry, I was going to wait till the end and answer that. It's £1,000 a year.
Thank you. Could I now invite you to sum up? Oh, I'm so sorry. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Evans, for bringing this motion this evening. If I were feeling slightly lighter than I currently am, I think I might say this is the definition of irony. It's beyond that. I had researched the initiative ahead of this evening's meeting, but I did not expect to see a worked example set out so clearly in this chamber. The White Ribbon organisation states, our mission is to prevent violence against women and girls by addressing its root causes. Our aim is to change long-established and harmful attitudes, systems, and behaviours around masculinity that perpetuate gender inequality and men's violence against women. White Ribbon's UK's work is preventative. We want to end violence before it starts. The suppressed violence and menace implied in the statement addressed to me, and further implied that it should be at the hands of my partner, shows exactly the pernicious and damaging attitudes which continue to prevail under the gloss of plausible social conformity. I am not the first, but I hope that I will be amongst the last to be addressed in such a way in this chamber. It's indicative of the it's okay, it's joke approach, which absolutely isn't okay, and it gives covering fire to violent and coercive behaviour here and across the world. It starts here, it starts tonight. Councillor Evans, thank you for the work that you've done in bringing this before us, and I hope that all members will fully commit to this and further to hold others to account for their behaviour. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Green. Thank you. Councillor Evans, would you like to sum up, please?
Yes, I'd just like to thank everyone so much for their support, to Councillor Mellor and Councillor Dove for highlighting the excellent work that's already going on within the Council. And I think this is a real positive step forward to really tackling violence against women and girls. So thank you everyone so much.
Thank you, Councillor Evans. If we could move to the vote, please. Those in favour, please. Any against? Abstentions? Thank you. Thank you very much. D, local authority funding for respite care. The BCP Council writes to His Majesty's Government to seek enhanced funding for local authorities for the provision of additional short breaks for parents of children with disabilities due to the proven preventative benefits on parental mental and physical health and on parental couple relationships, citing research by York University into the health of mothers of children with serious illness, pro bono economics on the impact of respite on parental mental health, and Bournemouth University and Julia's House on the impact of respite on parental relationships. Councillor Brooke, I call upon you to move your motion.
Fine, thank you, Chair. And I'm more than happy to propose this motion. I will be brief, bearing in mind the time, and hope that debate is relatively brief and totally supportive, because it is, to a large extent, a no-brainer in this instance. When I was Disabilities Champion on Poole Council some 8 to 10 years ago, one of the most frequent issues raised by parents to me was the issue of respite care, and at that time, basically, the lack of it and the effect it was having on their lives. Now, there's not a lot one could do in those situations. The evidence was basically anecdotal. Since then, there has been significant research by Bournemouth University, York University, and other organisations on a national basis, which goes to show the information that I provided, the background information I provided in terms of the impact on mothers, in terms of their life expectancy, on the mental health of parents, and also on the cost to the government of families splitting and having to pay benefits and so on. So it seems reasonably sensible for the government to actually provide sufficient funding for the necessary additional respite care that is very much needed for those parents who have got children with significant disabilities. And all that this motion is doing in this first instance is to ask the Council to write to the government seeking additional funding for the respite care and quoting the evidence that has been gained over the last few years. So I would really hope that you can all support this, preferably with no debate at all, bearing in mind the time, but if people do wish to have their say, then let's have that debate. So I thus propose.
Thank you, Councillor Brooke. Councillor Slade, I understand you wish to second the motion.
Reserve my right to speak, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Slade.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Gosh, it's been a long evening. I'll be brief. I would like to thank Councillor Brooke and Councillor Slade for the motion. As portfolio holder for children, I'm very happy to support this and to take this up. In fact, I'm always happy to continue campaigning for additional funding for disadvantaged children and their families. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor White. Any other? Councillor Hadley, please.
Ever so briefly, Chair, I strongly support this. I think it's really important that we look after carers. They are a hidden workforce with immense value to the area. Obviously, doing things for love for their families and 24/7. And so anything we can do to help them to do that, to carry on, because the impact on them personally is very significant. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hadley. Any other contributions? Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. I will be brief. I'd just like to thank again the mover and the seconder. We're in a good position with our carers review, with the respite raffle that we did earlier this year as well. We're making our mark, and I think it's only right that we go up to central government and asking for more support. So we've got a first step forward, so hopefully the government can come back and we can start going down the path together. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fear. Anybody else like to contribute before I ask Councillor Brooke to sum up? Councillor Brooke, please.
Fine, thank you, Chair. Just to say thank you for the support that's given, and let's hope that it achieves it. I am planning on taking this beyond the council, this council, to all the other councils across the country, so that there is sufficient pressure brought onto government for them to at least make some sort of response.
Thank you, Councillor Brooke. Can we ask members to vote? Show their... Those in favour, please. We'd like to think that's unanimous. Any against? And abstentions? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Agenda item 13, urgent decisions taken by the Chief Executive in accordance with the Constitution. I'll ask the Chief Executive to advise members of the urgent decisions taken. Chief Executive.
Thank you, Chair. In the 5 months since the last Council meeting on 12th of July, I've taken 3 urgent decisions. One was the appointment of the independent chair of BCP Future Places Limited, Lord Kerslake. One was for the appointment of a non-executive director of BCP Future Places, Pat Hayes. And one was to approve the recommendations in the report approved by Cabinet for the Council New Build Housing and Acquisition Strategy. So those 3 decisions are the urgent decisions I've taken since the last Council meeting. And can I just mention to members that I did have an email confirming that Councillor Julie Bagwell had given her apologies for this evening, but they hadn't arrived, so we've added those to the apologies.
Thank you.